Alright, so it's now 1:11. I think we'll just begin without Matthew. Um, Maybe he'll just catch up next week or maybe next session. Let's see, your sessions are Tuesdays and Thursdays, so maybe on Thursday we'll catch up. Okay, so let's begin. Anyway, the first meeting isn't actually that hard. It's more like an introduction phase. So we're just gonna go at it a little bit slowly. Um, since I'm not sure if Matthew is already adept in programming like you guys have. Let's see. Programming. Okay, here we go. So the first thing that we're gonna do, of course, is we're gonna get our IDE or our integrated development environment. All right. So if we're talking about Visual Basic, it's the whole work area. That's the IDE for Visual Basic. In this case, we're going to be using Visual Studio Code. Have you ever heard of that one?
Yes.
All right. And that will be what we will use for the entirety of this course, mainly because it's not so heavy and it's easy to install. Do you have that already by chance on your devices?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
All right, so both of you guys have it already. Let's see. Actually, I'm not sure if I have this on my laptop. I think I'm still missing the C++ library in order for it to work. Well, we'll see. Um, since you guys have it already installed, I'm just gonna show it just for the recording purposes. Okay, okay, I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So technically, this should be your first step. Visual Studio Code. All right, and usually it's the first one that comes up. Okay, Visual Studio Code or this one. Both is just the same. It will take you to this website, and all you have to do is download for Windows. Are you guys using Windows or Mac?
Yes, sir.
Windows. Okay.
Windows.
All right. So have you tried experimenting with other OS like Mac and Linux?
No, sir.
Not yet. Okay, that's all right. Um, so usually it's just Windows, really. Okay. So all you need to do is download this one and then follow the instructions. And there should be a tick box there where it says add the option to open with when you right click on a certain folder. And if you see that one, just kindly put a check mark on the checkbox and then continue afterwards. And then just keep on clicking next until you successfully installed Visual Studio Code. Next is we're going to need the C++ compiler. All right. So for the compiler, let me copy the link. Okay, so this is for the compiler. So I think it's readable on the screen. So you can copy this one, or um, I guess I can send this link together with an email so that Matthew can follow along. So what you need to do once you get to this website is just there's a series of instructions already here. There's even a video available if you want to follow that one. But basically, it's just an instruction on how to install the GCC with the min GW. It sounds weird, but this is what you need to configure your Visual Studio Code to use the C++ compiler. Okay, so in order for it to work, you're gonna use this one. Okay, uh, in cases where you're having difficulty installing this one, then what you can do is temporarily, we don't really need it immediately, but you can use the one online. So you can search C++ online compiler. All right. Let's see. Doodle. I think this is good. JS Doodle. JDoodle. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think this is good. So in cases where you're having difficulty installing this one, then you can just use the online version. Okay. So technically, these are the prerequisites. So Visual Studio Code, we have that one. We're gonna install the C and C++ extension for VS Code. So here are some steps on how to do it. There's some red squares. All you need to do is follow those red squares, and then you're gonna install the min GW64 toolchain. Okay, and basically this will allow us to code in C++. Okay, so here's a direct link to the installer. You're gonna follow this one now and run the program afterwards. So in cases where you guys are still using the 60 no 32-bit Windows, then I guess you should search for a different solution. Or in that case, you're gonna have to use the online version because this is now a requirement. Almost everything now requires a 64-bit minimum for the processor, for the operating system. All right, and when you are being shown the wizard, okay, the installation wizard, just choose your installation folder, and then yeah, you can record, but in most cases you don't actually need this one. um, ensure run, yep. So when you run the app now that comes after you install it, it will show you the terminal like this one, and then you can install the toolchain. Just follow this command. If you're gonna copy this one, then I think you need to right click on the terminal and then paste it afterwards. Or I forgot. Yeah, I think you can just control V if I remember correctly for terminals. And then on the next instruction here, you're gonna accept the default number of packages and the toolchain by pressing enter. So there's a bunch of lines that will come up saying that it's either installing or downloading the files that you're gonna need. Okay, and enter Y when prompted to proceed with the installation. So it doesn't really say if it's capital Y or a small y. In this case, it's showing that you need to enter the capital Y, but we have no confirmation at all. There's no picture, so just follow the instructions. If it's using a small y, then you're gonna have to use a small y. All right, and then you're gonna have to, this is the more difficult part because you're gonna have to add the path, right, to the bin folder, which is usually the part where students have a hard time. But yeah, after you follow this part, okay, you're gonna add the path to your bin folder, and then let's see, you have to go to the settings of your Windows settings and then search for something called the environment variable. So you absolutely need to do this one because if you're gonna skip this one, then Visual Studio won't know where to find the C++ compiler. So if it can't find a compiler, then it's just a bunch of letters. Visual Studio can't really understand what you're trying to say. Okay, it can't convert it to machine language into something that can do something, right? And then in your user variables, you have to select path and then select edit. All right. Now these things are pretty accurate. Even if you're using Windows 8, 10 or 11, the steps are the same. Okay, hardly any difference. If you just follow it step by step, um, it will get you there. Okay, so just read all the parts on the dialog boxes that you see, and then you should be good to go. And finally, in the end, you're gonna have to check your min GW installation, and then just type the following code: gcc version plus version and then gdb version. All right, so when you get these things, there's going to be a response. Okay, so it's not really shown here, but what you're going to see is the version number of your gcc, g++, and then gdb. All right, and let's see, and this is the part where you're going to create a hello world app. All right, but if I were to show all these steps right now, let's see, it's already 1:23. I think it will take up a lot of time if we're gonna demonstrate this one. I think we can just go directly to the Create Hello World app, and I'm pretty sure mine isn't installed yet for the Min GW, so it's gonna take a while. Um, for now, let's just demonstrate using the online version. All right. So using the online version, we're gonna create our first Hello World app, right? So let's see. So we can just remove these things. Those are just comments. All right, and then we can remove these things as well. Okay. So nothing too complicated at first. Um, Visual Studio Community. Hmm. Visual Studio Community. I think you're using the a different one because there, if I remember, there are two different kinds of Visual Studio: Freeform, Android, iOS, and Windows. Yeah. So Visual Studio Community, I just saw it in chat now. It's actually for these devices, so Android, iOS, Windows. So it's more focused on building those kinds of apps, right? I think it's the color purple. Am I correct? Is the icon of the Visual Studio color purple on your end, Aaron? Yes. All right. So that's the Visual Studio Community Edition, or just the regular Visual Studio. Visual Studio Code is actually the color blue. That's the one that you need. But technically, both of them, right? If you think about it, both of them can achieve the same thing. The only difference is that Visual Studio Code is a bit lighter, but it can get heavy if you add a lot of extensions. But the point is, um, Visual Studio Code is more like Notepad in Overdrive. So just a regular text editor, but with a lot of features that can really help you out in making it easier for you to code. All right, so it's always the um, application of choice for most developers, whether they are making something for Android or the web, which I also teach, by the way. I create websites, full stack development, front end, back end, this kind of stuff. And yeah, for Visual Studio, the only time that I'm ever using Visual Studio is when I'm doing game development, because I'm using the add-on there where Unity is directly integrated into Visual Studio. So that's the kind of thing that made it easier for me to program and code for Unity because it's directly plugged in. You can connect directly to the different objects for the game engine, right? So that's the only time that I'm using Visual Studio actually. Most of the time, I'm using Visual Studio Code for any other purposes. Okay. All right. So just remember the instructions earlier. Just search for Visual Studio Code. Okay, the blue one. Make sure it's the blue one, and then just download. And then look for the compiler. I guess I can give you this link. I'll share it on the chat. Make sure you guys bookmark it in case you wanted to install this one, because I'm gonna make sure by next session I'm gonna have it installed, and I'm gonna be using um, Visual Studio Code as well. So it's only for now that I'm gonna be using the online version in order for us to save time, because if I were to install it, then you know it's actually not very efficient. All right. So first things first, you're gonna type out these basic things. All right. So hashtag include IO stream. Next is using namespace std. Int main, open and close parentheses, and then open and close bracket. But you're gonna have to separate them by spaces like this one, right? So we're gonna discuss each one of them part by part, and afterwards, let's create some more examples, more activities. Okay. So what are we gonna do? We are gonna just say something simple. Okay. So C out and then say whatever you want uh, C++ to say. So let's say I wanted to say my name, hello Daniel, instead of the hello world usually. Um, and then afterwards it's the end line. Okay, and then we can put a return 0 here just to make sure that it doesn't do any error. All right, and then after writing that out, if you press execute, and an ad will come up. All right, so let's just do the ads. Crosswalks. All right. So where is the output? Ah, I forgot the. All right, sorry. All right, hello everyone. So there is the output. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Here's a magnifying glass. So hello Daniel. See in the output section, it's gonna say hello Daniel. All right. So that's an indication that there are no errors on your code. All right. So just for this activity, I want you guys just to do this very simple exercise. Make sure that you're able to create an output like that one earlier without any errors. So all you have to do is follow the instructions first. I mean the lines of code, and then if you're successful without any errors, then we're gonna discuss each one of them. What do they mean, and how do they affect our program? Okay. So not yet in detail, more like just a general overview. This is just the introduction part of C++. No need to go too deep yet. Um, yeah, we're gonna reserve that one to future sessions. Okay. So let me know when you guys are done copying, and I want to see your work by sharing your screen and I want to see the output displaying your message. Okay, you can decide on your message what kind of message you want. It doesn't have to be a hello something. It can be anything that you want. Be creative. Okay. All right. So this shouldn't take too long. I'll give you guys maybe 3 minutes, and then I'll call one of you. All right.
How do I know if mine is work?
What do you mean by minus work?
How do I know if, like, where do I check it?
Okay. So it's over on the right side here, on the output. So all you're gonna see here is the actual output. You're not gonna see anything that says error or syntax error or something. So all you see here is the actual output.
It's not on my, it's not here. Bottom.
It's not it's not working on your end.
Oh, okay, I found.
You found it. Maybe you just need to scroll down a little bit. How about for Enzo?
I finished it, sir.
All right. So this should be rather easy for you, right? Since you've also tried C sharp, right? So for my experience, when I tried C sharp before, I actually found C sharp just a bit more difficult compared to C++. Um, yeah, but it's actually more performant, right, compared to C++. But C++ is a bit of a higher language. There's a lot of words here that um, are easier to digest than the ones in C sharp, from my experience. How about on your end, Enzo?
Uh, I can't really say anything right now, sir, since I'm new to C++, because when I used C sharp, it was for a fingerprint scanner. So, yeah.
A fingerprint scanner. So was it for a project at school or?
Yes, sir.
Mm. So how did you do? How did the teachers react to the
Uh,
project?
they were surprised, sir, since again we were using Visual Basic, and I remember one of my classmates. He kind of like I can't say mad, but he questioned why I used C sharp because we were supposed to use Visual Basic. So,
Mm-hmm. Ah, all right.
yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter what you use in the end as long as you get the correct output. That's what matters, right? Like, have you seen websites where it absolutely looks terrible, for example, but a lot of users actually use that one, even though it looks terrible because of the content, right? Because of what it's used for. In terms of web development, content is king. So no matter how good your website looks like, if your content is abysmal, right? No one's gonna visit your website. In fact, a lot of people will visit more the ugly looking website, but it has good content, right? Like for example, Reddit. If you guys go to Reddit, it's not really that um, good before. Right now, it's actually a bit cleaner, but before it's a bit of a mess of a forum. Just words scrambled everywhere, but a lot of people still use it. It's one of the earliest forums on the internet. All right. Um, so since Enzo is done, can I see your work first, Enzo, before I go to Aaron? All right. So what did you make C++ say? The man who can't be moved. Nice. All right. So I think you did it perfectly. Okay. Thank you for sharing. Let's go to Aaron. Mm, all right. I'm still waiting. Currently, I'm seeing black. All right. There it is. And let's see. So what are you using? You're using JDoodle as well. Um, let's see. just a regular hello world. Let's see the output on the right. It's showing some errors. Okay, let's try and follow the errors around, starting from the top. Mm, int main. So in my end, it's not really that clear. The code isn't that clear. Hashtag include IO stream using namespace int main open and close curly brace c out. Are you just using one less than sign or is that two less than signs? Um,
It's two.
it's two. How about for the one after world? From what I can see here, it's just one.
It's two.
It's two. All right. It's a bit blurry on my end. And then return zero. Okay, let's take a look at the error again. Let's go to the bottom. In file include from IO stream, O stream, O stream. Why is it reading it as O stream? IO stream. Right there, I can see it now. It's not blurry anymore. Alright, so on line 7, it should be end line. So the end word has an L at the end. Put an L there. End line. Yeah. And then run the code again. That should work. Right, there you go. Okay, so congratulations on creating your first C++ program. So it's a bit simple, but it's kind of you know, the basic trial for any programming language is to say hello world or something. And from that, you can kind of understand all the basics already. Okay, so I want you guys to direct your attention now to my screen. Let's try and go over each one, right? And just get a broad overview of what we are doing. Okay, so when we say hashtag include and then IO stream, what we're basically doing is that we want to include, per se, the IO stream library. Okay, so what is a library? You can think of a library as mm, something that has a bunch of tools, right? Those tools will later be known as functions that we can use in our programs. Okay. In this case, what's included in the IO stream is this function. It's called the C out. This is included in the IO stream. In fact, if we take a look at this, right? If we search IO stream functions, just so that you can see what's inside the IO stream library. See, okay, it's not really that clear. So C++ IO stream library is short for standard input output. That's why it says IO, and then it streams the input and output all together. Okay, so these are the objects available um, inside the IO stream. So it's calling them objects. Let's see. If we go back here, yes, it's not really performing like it's a function, so it's an object. All right. So my bad. So it considers this one as an object, which can read input and output data to the console or to a file. So basically, um, it can read our inputs from the keyboard, right? And then shows it to us on our default output device, which is our monitor or the monitor that we chose. Okay. And if you scroll down, there are two basic objects here. So it's C in and C out. So the one that we have used so far is C out, an output stream which writes output to the console by default. So our console is the one that we see here. This is our console, our output section. Okay. Depending on what IDE you're using, the console can either be at the bottom directly or like this one on the side. Sometimes it doesn't say output, it says console. So it really depends on what you're using, right? And you can explore all the other things here, but it's not really a lot, right? It's just a few things. So cin, of course, is for an input stream that reads keyboard input from the console by default. So we're going to use this one later on when we want our program to accept input from the user. Okay. If we go back here, so that's for the IO stream. So what do we want to do? We want to include everything in the IO stream, meaning all of these objects, so that we can use them in our program. So as you can see, after including this library, we can now use cout, because if I were to remove that one, right, and then I'm going to say execute, it's going to say something like an error. Okay, so it's going to say int main error cout was not def. Can't really read it, it's on the other side, but I guess it's going to say cout was not defined. Alright, at line 7, it found it at line 7, and then std count is defined. I can't really understand because I can't read the whole error, but I'm just filling in the blanks here. But the main point is, if you exclude that one, you can't use the cout anymore. Okay. Next is using namespace std. So what is the using namespace std stands for? Um, Basically, just saves you time, but by removing some characters when you are using an object. All right. So in this case, cout. Right. If you're to remove this one, okay, this is how you would write cout. Std colon colon. This is how you would write it out um, before you can use cout. And if you try and execute this one, you'll see that it will have the same output. It should have the same output, but it's not working. Let's see. Okay, the end line. Yep. Hopefully this one is correct. Yep, there you go. So I forgot the end line. So all the objects that you're going to be using, you're going to have to add the std colon colon there. And if you think about it, it's kind of a hassle, right? You need to add these two things in this one line already. So what you're going to do is, what you're just going to declare using namespace std. So as long as it's part of the standard library, this is the IO stream is part of the standard library. If you go back here, it's gonna say standard. It's part of the standard library. So I wonder if this website has that one. Hmm. Yeah, I think this is it. So all of these things. So IO stream, F stream, CMath, string, C string, C-time, vector, and algorithms. So if my understanding is correct, yep, these things are the libraries that are included in the standard. And all the objects that you declare here, right, that are inside these libraries, all needs the std colon colon prefix in order for it to work. But if you have this line, then you can just um, use the name of the object directly. Okay. Next is the main function. So you will always have this function in any C++ program, because this is what um, it will be read. This is the starting point when the program is running. Okay. So the ones at the top are more like for preparation purposes. Okay. This is the one that where the program really starts. And as you can see, this is a function, right? So whenever you're using a function, this is the syntax of how to use it. So first is you're gonna indicate the return value, which is int. You're gonna indicate the name of the function followed by open and close parentheses, and then afterwards open and close bracket, and all the code that you need should be in between the open and close bracket. That's what we see here. Okay, now let's go back to int. So let's say this is the return type, the return data type. So we're gonna go into data types as well. Um, so as you can see, there's a lot to discuss, right? So we have to learn what the return keyword is. We're gonna have to sorry there. We're gonna have to learn the return keyword, what data types are, what variables are. Okay, of course we're not using them here, but it's applicable to what we're trying to learn. And then syntax. Okay, so syntax basically, what you'll always get from school is that it will explain to you that syntax is just technically the grammar, right? Let's say, for example, the English language, right? So in English, we have certain rules that we have to follow in order for us to create a sentence with a complete thought, right? So we need to know about nouns, verbs, adverbs, phrases, conjunctions, those kinds of things, right? You have to put them in the correct order in order for them to have meaning. And then when you end the sentence, it has to have complete thought, right? So that's what grammar is. You're following the rules. It's the same thing with programming. That's why we call it programming language. You're trying to speak in a way that the computer can understand. So in order for them to understand, you're going to have to follow the syntax that they understand, okay? The grammar that they understand. So that's what syntax is. And grammar. So basically this is our first syntax that we see here. um, Actually three. So this is one syntax. This is the syntax when you want to include a library. This is the syntax when you want to use something, right? See the keyword using. And then this is the syntax when you want to declare a function, okay? But the main here is kind of unique, all right? This will always be, there will only be one main function, and it's the function that will run when you press execute, okay? All the other functions that you declare will just be for reference, okay? If ever they are used, then that will be when they are used, but the main function will always run whenever you press play, okay? Inside here we see two lines. Let's start with see out. So see out, again, as we saw earlier, um, outputs the data into our console, right? So in this case, our data is a string data. It is a string data type. So we have two more, right? So this is string. This is numbers. So we have two data types now: string and numbers. So more on that later. Um, so we're done with this, right? Syntax. I'll just mark it there. By the way, what I'm doing here is actually called comments, right? Um, two forward slashes. Basically, when this is encountered, uh, the compiler will just essentially skip these parts. They don't actually mean anything for the compiler, but it means something to the developer, because you're going to be using that one to explain your functions. You're going to be using that one to explain your logic at certain areas of your code. And last but not least, you're going to use that one to temporarily disable a line when you're trying to debug. So those are the three uses of the comment. All right. Um, where was I earlier? So see out, right? And then followed by end line. So if you take a look at this line, you start with an object followed by two less than symbols, followed by the string that you want to output, followed by another two less than symbols, and then an end line, indicating that if this is the cursor, it should go down to the next line. If you did not indicate this one, then you have another C out declaration. It's gonna show up as one line. All right. So if you want that kind of effect, all you have to do is remove the end line, and every C out that you're gonna use, it's gonna align themselves to the first one. Okay. But if you were to, let's see, what are the examples I can think of? Um, mm, yeah, I think that's it. I think I finished everything. Um, I don't think I've missed anything. Ah, okay, yeah, this one. Whenever you're dealing with statements, okay, you always have to end them with a semicolon. That's what a statement is. So with these things, they are not considered statements. They're more like commands. Even for the include, they're more like commands, direct commands. These things are statements. So that's why we have a semicolon at the end. Right? So you always need that one. If you remove one and then try to run the code, it's gonna produce an error like missing semicolon at line. See, error expected semicolon before something something, but it's not really visible in the code. But we have to add it back. Okay. Last but not the least is the return keyword. Okay. More in this later, but basically return is what will happen when the entire function is done. Okay. When the entire function is done, what you're left with is the value after the return keyword here. So we'll experiment more on that later. I mean soon, because we can't really see it right now because it's in the main function. We need to put this one into a different function so that we can actually see um, how it reacts, right? What happens with it whenever we return something. Okay, so that's basically it for the introduction. So I hope that got your interest. Do you have any questions, by the way, Aaron and Enza?
None, sir.
None. All right. How about you, Aaron?
Not
None. All right. So it's fairly easy for now. Okay, since we're just at the intro part. Usually, the 1 hour class here takes time due to the installation of the MinGW and also the Visual Studio Code. But since you guys said earlier that you already have it, I encourage you guys to use that one and then apply this code there. Okay, and then try to see the difference between the output there and then the output here on the online compiler. All right. So if you guys have no
is it
question,
okay if I use the
yes,
wait,
can you speak louder,
is it
please?
okay if I may use is it okay if I just use the website na lang? I don't set it.
Okay. Yep. It's perfectly fine. It's just that you're missing a lot of things when you're using this one. Because sooner or later, if you really get interested into programming, you're gonna start looking for an IDE which has this kind of feature or that kind of feature, right? But yeah, it's still good to use online compilers like this one because it actually saves time, no need for installations and those kinds of things. So it's perfectly fine. Okay, but for me, I'll just be using Visual Studio Code for those that want to use that. Okay, all right. Any other questions?
None, sir.
All right. So that's it for today. I'll see you on when again Thursday. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Okay. Say goodbye for now.
Goodbye, sir.